Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. We have been looking at learning and memory and the contributions of Donald Hebb, and we will continue to look at other topics. Specifically, we will continue our discussion on the limbic lobe. In the last video, we looked at the limbic lobe and the contribution of James Pepys, who proposed the famous Pepys circuit that essentially caused a revolution to improve our understanding of how there was a neurophysiology associated with the emotion and provided a neural substrate for the emotions. In this video, we will continue our discussion on the limbic system, specifically on the Kluver-Bucy syndrome. In the same year that James Pepys published his landmark paper, Heinrich Kluver and Paul Bucy in Chicago discovered the so-called Kluver-Bucy syndrome in monkeys. They were working with monkeys and performed a study in which the temporal lobe was surgically removed bilaterally on both sides. What happens when you remove the temporal lobe in monkeys? How does behavior change? That is the question. The publication of this work was delayed due to the war, and finally the publication happened in 1955. They reported 5 crucial findings. First of these 5 main effects or crucial findings is over attentiveness. These monkeys were restless. They were sensitive to almost all kinds of stimuli. So, they had an urge to orient towards or respond to every stimulus that comes. So, there was frequent and quick response to all stimuli. Then another finding was hyperorality. They had an urge to put everything that they find in their mouth, to examine everything that they find by putting it in the mouth and then examining. A form of hyperorality, called as hyperorality here. They also had what was characterized as psychic blindness. They see but do not understand. For example, they see even harmful objects such as a lighted match, but they do not understand the consequence of touching or examining such a stimulus. So, they see the lighted match or a sharp object, but they are not able to connect a meaning what this could cause or look at a possible consequence or a harmful consequence of this stimulus. So, they call this as psychic blindness. They can see but cannot really understand. And there was also an incidence of sexual hyperactivity. They were very active sexually. They were approaching practically everything and everybody, including sometimes inanimate objects. And then finally, they also found that these monkeys had changes in their emotional behavior, emotional changes. Wild and aggressive monkeys became tame and calm. Wild, aggressive monkeys turned into calm and tame monkeys. So, there was a marked change in the emotional behavior. All these set of complex features together came to be called as the Kluver-Bucy syndrome. It is now understood that psychic blindness may be due to the loss of neocortex, temporal lobe neocortex, and hyperactivity may be due to the activation of neurons at the borders of the lesion. Maybe that may be the cause for hyperactivity. This sexual hyperactivity became the sensational aspect of this syndrome. Everybody was like, oh, this makes people or animals sexually hyperactive. So, everybody was super excited about this, so to speak. But detailed study of this later, it was shown that this sexual hyperactivity was not actually, specifically directed at this symptom, but rather this was general hyperactivity that also presented in this dimension, perhaps. Finally, the changes in the emotional behavior finally were attributed to amygdala. So, the complex features of all these things, all these symptoms put together came to be called as the Kluver-Bucy syndrome. With this, we come to the end of this video. In this video, we looked at the Kluver-Bucy syndrome. We continued our discussion of the limbic system, and specifically we looked at the Kluver-Bucy syndrome and the set of all features that constitute the Kluver-Bucy syndrome and the possible explanations for these. Thank you for your attention.